Shoplifting, kid drama, and drug issues are just some of the topics that we're going to talk about. Some questions we're going to get answered today in our Ask the Attorney segment. And here with us is Mike Marion with Minton Marion Attorneys at Law. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's get to our first question. It's dealing with shoplifting. A viewer wants to know, my 12-year-old son was caught shoplifting. He's just a kid. What can happen to him?
Well, in Texas, the Juvenile Justice Code governs what happens to these kids. And under the Juvenile Justice Code, a juvenile is someone who's 10 years of age or older, but not yet 17. So this 12-year-old clearly falls within that realm and could be prosecuted for shoplifting. What happens, though, is it depends on the value. If the value of the item taken would be less than $50, it would go to JP, municipal court, be looking at probably a fine, maybe some community service, something like that. But if it's over $50, then it would go to the juvenile court, where they could be facing fines, probation, and possibly out-of-home placement, depending on what's going on. Obviously, the best to be contact an attorney and try to make sure that your child gets the best representation that they can.
And kids just don't steal, and that eliminates that problem altogether, right?
That certainly eliminates that problem.
Next question. My 16-year-old daughter has informed me that when she turns 17, because that's what 16-year-olds do, they inform their parents, she says she's going to be an adult and move out. Can she do that?
Well, 17 in Texas is kind of a screwy age, because under the criminal laws of Texas, they're an adult. And so if a 17-year-old were to be caught shoplifting, they go to adult jail. However, under the civil laws and in the family code, a child is someone under the age of 18. So a parent, and any parent who's ever done a divorce decree, paid child support, knows that they're responsible until they turn 18. So what happens is if your 17 leaves home without your permission and without the intent to return, they're not listed as a runaway, but they are listed as a missing child under the Code of Criminal Procedure, and law enforcement is supposed to make them come back home or arrange for them to come back home.
Okay, so 17, you still have to stay there with your parents.
You still have to stay with your parents, but it's one of these really screwy ages, because criminally you're an adult, you can go to jail, but you can't buy alcohol, you can't buy tobacco, you can't vote, you can't leave home without parents' permission.
All right. Our last question. I was riding with my friend and he got stopped by the police. They searched the car and found drugs. It was his car and his drugs. Why did they arrest me too?
Well, when it comes to the laws dealing with possession of controlled substance, marijuana or something like that, they're not looking for ownership. The question is possession. And so just as something, laying here in front of us, we both know it's there. We could be construed as having constructive knowledge of it. What it takes to arrest you is probable cause, meaning probably did you know it was there, then the police could probably go ahead and arrest you. However, that's not enough to convict you. There's a much higher burden of proof. So just because you're arrested doesn't mean you're going to get convicted. But the issue that the state has to prove is not ownership, but possession. And so often there's a misconception there, well, it's not my drugs, why am I getting punished for it? Well, because you knew about it.
All right. Now that's a question a lot of people have and probably had to deal with their kids at some point.
Probably so, and that's where, over the years I've talked to different groups of kids and stuff, and I always tell them, you got to know who your friends are, because if drugs are found in a car that you're a passenger in, there's a good chance you're going to go to jail, and it's going to cause you lots of problems. Even if you subsequently beat the charge, you still have that arrest on your record and other things like that you have to deal with.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. And again, we get your legal questions answered here every Wednesday. You can submit your questions by either calling the law office there or emailing or faxing the law office. Also, fox4beaumont.com, click on Ask an Attorney and submit your questions.